Available in paperback at e-readers, ISIS, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get your copy of ISIS, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. A black U.S. airman was allegedly shot and killed by Florida deputies who burst into the wrong apartment.
Now to newly released body cam video of the fatal police shooting of a black U.S. airman in his own home last week. His family fighting for the video's release and demanding answers. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has the latest for us. Good morning, Pierre.
Michael, good morning. There are more questions than answers in this truly tragic story. And warning, the video you're about to see is truly disturbing.
This is the moment U.S. Airman Roger Fortson was fatally shot in his own home by a Florida sheriff's deputy.
Sheriff's office, open the door! Step out.
You see it all play out in newly released body camera footage from the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department. The officer announces his presence at Fortson's apartment after receiving a report of a disturbance.
Sheriff's office, open the door!
Fortson appears and is shot almost instantaneously. Watch closely, slow down, and you see the door open. There appears to be a gun in Fortson's right hand, but it's pointing downward, never aimed at the officer, who immediately fires, striking Fortson in the chest and arm. Fortson later died at the hospital.
He shot up. My baby was shot up.
His family claiming authorities had the wrong apartment, that Fortson was alone on the phone with his girlfriend. Authorities say the investigation will be thorough.
I want to assure you that we are not hiding, covering up, or taking action that would result in a rush to judgment of Mr. Fortson or our deputy.
But this morning it's unclear whether Fortson actually caused the reported disturbance.
Tell the truth about my son. I know my son did not do anything to you guys.
The military wanting answers as well.
We certainly never want to see our airmen or any military member or any part of our DoD family be put into a situation like this.
This sad case is now a full-scale criminal investigation conducted by state law enforcement officials.
That video incredibly difficult to watch. All right, Pierre, thank you.
Now, according to reports, 23-year-old Airman Roger Fortson was sitting inside of his apartment talking to his girlfriend on FaceTime. And as he was talking to his girlfriend on FaceTime, he got a knock at the door as his family alleges and his girlfriend alleges, and Roger Fortson then pulled his legally licensed firearm to approach the door, and as he went to approach the door, this is where body cam footage shows the deputy from the sheriff's department looking to respond to a call as related to a disturbance by knocking on the door and identifying himself as a member of the sheriff's department. Now, as Roger Fortson opened the door with his licensed weapon in his hand, pointed downward, this is where he was confronted by this police officer, and allegedly what happened is, what's shown on the body cam footage is, on seeing Roger Fortson with this weapon, he immediately reacted by taking out his firearm and began shooting at Roger Fortson, which led to Roger Fortson sadly losing his life and basically creating this tragedy that took place as related to this U.S. airman. Now, what happened here basically is another textbook incident of what happens when rogue police officers are on the job, because what happened here is eerily similar to what happened to Botham Jean a few years ago. Now, if you'll recall, Botham Jean was sitting in his apartment eating ice cream when this white female officer decided to enter into his apartment because she got into the wrong apartment, and then confronted Botham Jean and went and shot and murdered him and was convicted of that crime. Now, what some reports are saying is that this officer, similar to what happened in the case of Botham Jean, as responding to this disturbance, basically got the wrong apartment and knocked on the door of the wrong apartment. And as he knocked on the wrong apartment door, he reacted by not looking to look to investigate the incident, but escalated it by pulling his firearm, and escalated it by pulling that firearm in the face of a man who had a weapon pointed down. Because if you are an officer of the law and this person has a weapon pointed down, the response to that whole situation should be one where you're looking to try to inquire what the disturbance is and find a way to solve it. Because from the body language of Roger Fortson, he clearly was not an agitated individual. He was not looking to do harm to anyone. No, like many Floridians who have the legal right and license to carry a weapon, he was looking to defend his home. But as he was looking to try to defend his home, he was, as I see it, basically attacked by this officer who was extremely impulsive in pulling his weapon, instead of looking to try to find out what the details of the disturbance actually were. Now, some people will sit there and say, oh, an officer has to go out and react on a split second, but I have to disagree with that talking point, because here we had a situation where this officer could have easily gone and did some critical thinking, in this situation as related to trying to ask a couple of questions. Because if you have a member of the U.S. military, he is trained in knowing how to use a weapon, one, and two, he is trained in protocol, and all you had to do once you saw the weapon pointed down was to start looking to ask some questions. That was all that needed to be done in this situation. However, because this officer possibly saw a black man, he immediately reacted as related to seeing him as a threat, because in white supremacist America, a black man is considered a threat just by having his presence, because I doubt this white male officer would have gone out and pulled this weapon if this were a case of a white male, or in the case of a white female, like the Monroe County prosecutor, who basically was able to drive all the way to her home, put her car in the garage on a traffic and avoid and not really look to dealing with a traffic stop. I mean, what I found in that whole case is that officers can use discretion, but they don't use any discretion at all when it comes to a heterosexual black man, because they see a heterosexual black man as a threat first and want to go out and look to neutralize that threat first. And that really shows the whole issue as related to race in policing, because again, if a white female can go and not acknowledge the authority of police as related to a traffic stop, drive all the way to her home, get into an argument with the police officers, and not look to comply with any commands, that really shows you how race basically colors the way we police, because the whole reaction to this airman basically was because he was a black man. And I doubt they would do this in the case of a white man or a non-black man. No, even if those guys even carry firearms, they would still be allowed to be able to get the story as related to those individuals. But the whole reaction to this disturbance was basically because this was a black man, because no other reaction would be done as related to these officers in this county. Now, what's really interesting is that in this county, many of these same officers reacted by going and having a shootout as related to acorns dropping on a cruiser. Again, this was another incident that involved black people, where they basically went out here and went into a shooting spree because the acorns from squirrels dropped on a car, which really shows me the competency of these officers isn't very good, because any good officer would understand, okay, there's a difference between the sound of the shot of a gun and acorns dropping on the hood of a vehicle. But this is what happens when you have people who get their jobs based on white privilege. What happens when you get people who get their jobs based on white privilege is they don't really are qualified to do the job, and that basically was shown here with these officers who I believe were rogue police officers who were operating out of their biases based on their whole ideas of black people, which were primarily based on stereotypes, and they were acting in, again, the same dysfunctional way that the white female officer acted in the case of Botham Jean. And just like the case of Botham Jean, here we have an officer again going to the wrong door because they went and did not check their information on their computers, and then reacting by, as I see it, murdering this man, murdering a man who basically was just opening the door to find out what was going on, because as he's sitting there in his home, and in his own home, no real threat, because if he's chatting with his girlfriend on FaceTime, it's clear that there is no disturbance, and there's no disturbance because if a man is sitting in his home alone and chatting with a girlfriend on FaceTime, who was miles away, there's clearly no crime, and whatever call you got was clearly one that sent you to the wrong apartment. So instead of dealing with the conflict that 911 dispatchers sent them to, they went and created and escalated a situation that was worse, and that's why these officers need to be held accountable the same way that that white female officer was held accountable for the death of Botham Jean. Now, Botham Jean was a tether, and again, his family showed no respect for black people as related to this case, and in this case, we do need to get justice for this member of the military, because it's clear from this video that this man's civil rights were violated because this officer did not go and look to inquire about the incident. So we've got evidence of his federal civil rights being violated as a member of the military, and in state court we've got a clear case of minimum of manslaughter as related to this officer acting impulsively. So we have a clear case with this incident, but it really shows how nothing has changed as related to things. And what's really sad is we're starting to see a pattern of these incidents escalate 4 years after the death of George Floyd, which was supposed to lead to so-called change with the Biden administration when they went out here and symbolically sacrificed Derek Chauvin. They only sacrificed Derek Chauvin for an election year because we see nothing has really changed as related to the way rogue police officers behave as related to incidents like this. We see that there's no real boundary to establish their behavior, and we clearly see from this incident we really need an anti-black hate crime bill. We really need an anti-black hate crime law in place to really deal with these kinds of incidents, because these incidents only happen to foundational black Americans when we're out and about. I mean, it's sad that we can't even be safe in our own homes, because again, this is the second incident in almost 5 to 10 years of a black man just being in his home, and he cannot enjoy the covenant of enjoyment of his own home or even have a talk with his girlfriend, or like Botham Jean couldn't even enjoy a bowl of ice cream in his home without somebody looking to do harm to him. And sadly, there's no recourse of actual justice because we don't have legal precedent on the books that really punishes these rogue officers for reacting in the way that they did, because the way that this was reacted, again, was just completely out of line. I mean, the first thing you want to do if a guy has a weapon down is make a command that asks the person to either drop the weapon or to ask the person that let them know, okay, this person has a weapon, this is their legal right to have, and ask them, what is the disturbance? I mean, this is what happens when you're in a situation and you look at that situation and think critically. Again, the split-second excuse doesn't apply here because this was just, again, a rogue officer not understanding how to react with the public, because I wonder if the same officer would have acted that way if this were a white female. Because if it was a white female, I guarantee you, like what happened in the case of that Monroe County DA, he would be sitting there trying to find out what the story is. But when he saw a black man, immediately he saw his skin color as a threat. So that's why I believe in the case of this officer, yes, the U.S. military and the FBI need to do an investigation, because this man's civil rights were violated, because we nearly need to look out for our members of our military and look out for the members of our military, because what's the use of serving a country that can't give you the tangible of justice? I mean, that's a critical question I've got to ask every black person who's enlisted in the military, because this whole case basically shows how little respect that what they have for black members of the military. I mean, here we have a black member of the military who is serving his country and looking to fight for his country, but he can't get any protections under the law, because again, if you've got a disturbance as related that to a 911 call, the first question you're supposed to ask is if it was what's going on with this situation. And again, I mean, I've seen episodes of cops where they weren't coming out aggressive like this. I mean, I look at the whole response, and again, it's not no critical thinking whatsoever, because when police come to the door as related to a disturbance, you're supposed to be trying to de-escalate the situation. I mean, the way this guy identified himself basically showed hostility. I mean, the first thing you want to do is go out here and de-escalate the situation, and by identifying yourself first and then looking to talk to the individual. But that wasn't done here, and again, it was a guy reacting on emotion, too aggressive, and again, shows how they see black people, see us as a threat, see us as a danger, and see danger based on the color of our skin, but don't really see us as people based on the content of our character. And that's sad, because again, this man looked to serve his country, but his country wasn't looking to serve him. And I wonder if our country will serve him by giving him the justice he deserves. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my books you can find them all in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com by clicking the link in the description box as well. And there you can find lots of positive black fiction and nonfiction on the SJS Direct imprint. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS, Amari's Revenge. The goddess next door is confronted by a Nubian queen out for revenge at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in this inaugural ISIS series adventure. Get your copy of ISIS, Amari's Revenge in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.